Part of it, I think, for me is for people for whom communication, it feels less natural or feels like more of an effort. There is a lot of meaning in any one kind of interaction that you have with someone, that sense of embarrassment or I have to get what I need out of this. And for us, it's our currency. It's a flow. If something comes back that doesn't make sense to us, then let's keep talking about it. Let's continue the process. So communication is process, right? It's not an end result. There's no perfect speech. This is a process. It's organic.
Hello and welcome to Coach to Coach. Today we are talking about the communication strength, and I am joined by Jennifer and Chris, and they are experts with this particular strength. So we are going to dive right in and talk about this fascinating communication ability that some of us have as this talent, this gift, this Clifton strength theme. So Jennifer, let's jump right in with you. Where are you coming to us from today?
Yes, I am joining you today from Fort Collins, Colorado.
Fort
300
Collins.
days of sunshine a year.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. And can you give us your top 5?
Yes, communication, connectedness, maximizer, woo, relator.
Thank you. And since you are leading with communication, can you tell us about that strength for you? I know you were a guest on season 2 and we went deep with it, but for the benefit of our listeners today, can you talk to us about that strength?
Yeah, sure. Communication is when putting thoughts into words comes absolutely naturally. We are natural storytellers. You don't have to give us a lot of warning. I didn't know Brandon was going to ask that question, but I'm fine. I can explain it to you. So when you lead with communication, you can put your thoughts into words quickly and often can do it in a way that's understandable to others. Now, tell me in a half hour if we've done that, but that is the strength that comes out quite naturally for us.
Very good. Thank you. And so with all those other strengths, with positivity, connectedness, number 2, that'll be interesting to connect to. Maximizer, woo, relator. All right. Chris, how are you today?
I'm good, Brandon. It's great to see you. And Jennifer, it's wonderful to be here with you and looking forward to this conversation.
And where are you at this morning?
I am in the lovely little town in the Sierra foothills of Grass Valley, California.
Grass Valley. Beautiful.
Yes, indeed. It's a great place. And if you're in California, I suggest you come visit. It's a really fun spot.
Very good. And Chris, can you give us your top 5?
I can. I'm activator, number 1, communication, number 2. I enjoyed the Activator podcast a lot, Brandon. It was very fun to listen to.
Oh, good.
I am input, and then maximizer, and then strategic. And again, I would be remiss if I didn't come in at 6 on woo. So that you're going to hear that as well.
Perfect. Ooh, we got some fun variants in here with your top strengths having some similar matchups and then having some unique differences. For the benefit of our listeners, so communication for me is number 8. And I definitely relate to what Jennifer said about putting thoughts into words. Chris, can you describe yours to us, how communication shows up for you?
Yeah, I think the word story always is something that we communication folks can relate to. I've never met a situation where I didn't have a good story or analogy to share about it, sometimes to other people's dismay, because really the world is full of stories for us. And it's how I see the world. It's how I describe the world. And then the other thing is, I like often we who have communication are external processors, right? We use words, we learn through words, we describe through words, and we process through words. So that's the other piece of communication for me is I'm very much someone who wants to talk things out. And I get to insights and my best when I'm in communication with someone else describing something or discussing it.
Sometimes I'll say that other people have to think about what they're going to say before they talk. And I usually say, I don't know what I'm thinking until I talk it out. So I fully agree with you, Chris.
The perfect way of describing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that piece of this is one that will help people to understand communication, the verbal processing aspect of it, where we're still finding what we think. And because we have to hear ourselves say it. And once we hear ourselves say it, then it's like, yeah, that's it. That's what I meant to say. That's where it's meant to go. But for others, it can be okay, wait a minute, but you just said this, and then you said that, and then you said this, and then you said this. Yeah, I know. That was me thinking. I know. You think that was me telling. It wasn't. That was just all part of the learning process. Stick around. There'll be a lot of that connecting.
Exactly.
I do want to ask you both because you have woo in close proximity to your communication. And for many of us that work with strengths, we commonly see those two together. And so I'm curious how you two characterize, and whenever I say you two, either one of you can jump in at any time and take the answers. You can run with them. But how do you see those two show up together for you? And why do you think that's such a common pair? Why do we see those almost when you find one, you just look a little ways down, you're going to find the other?
Yeah, I think for me it feels like if this is true for me because I have woo, because I have that instinct and that drive to get to know people, to strangers are just friends I've not met yet kind of instinct that comes with woo. I feel like communication is such a critical tool to engage with the world in that way, to express my woo. I feel like it would be hard to not have both of those because of that. So I feel like communication is a necessary part of relating to the world from woo for me.
I agree fully. I think we think about communication as an external kind of talent. I mean, it's in the influencing domain, which is interesting. It does, of course, help us to build relationships, but it is an influencing talent. So always when we're influencing, there's someone else involved. So if we're communicating, we have to communicate to someone. But I will say with that woo, it doesn't have to be someone we know well. So honestly, if I'm making a decision about what to buy at a store, I might turn to the random stranger next to me and say, which one of these do you think is better? Because I'm trying to think through which is the better product. It doesn't matter that I don't have a relationship with that person. So I think that's a real key difference with woo versus relator, someone who externally processes but needs that deep connection to do it. I have both relator and woo, but I can externally process with a stranger, no problem.
For sure. We're the people who in the grocery store line are chatting with someone else because we see they're buying the same thing or interested in what they're getting. So yeah, for sure.
So Chris, I noticed that you have input with your communication, and I'm super curious how that one connects with this particular strength. And Jennifer, do you know where yours is in terms of where input falls?
Input is for me? It's kind of in the middle.
Yeah, for me, it's 33. So I'm always intrigued by these strengths that can pop in for somebody so high and connect. Chris, how do you characterize those two, and how does that help to shape communication?
Yeah, so I think both of my thinking strengths, I do lead with influencing. 3 of my top 5 and 4 of my top 10 are influencing. But those thinking strengths, I also have 4 thinking strengths in my top 10. And input in particular for communication, my communication tends to be about offering other people resources. So my first instinct when I'm working with someone, for example, as a coach, there's a running joke that whether I'm doing a webinar or coaching with people, by the end of the session, you're going to get a handout or a website or some kind of resource to give you further access or further information or to be able to go deeper. So it's that gathering, but the really unique thing about input is the giving it away. And so my communication is often in service of what can I offer someone as a resource to help them do whatever it is that they're looking to do.
Interesting. And so, Jen, I want to ask you about communication with connectedness.
Yeah.
I'm really curious how those two show up.
So I see connectedness 2 ways. Now, I lead with relationship building. I have influencing second, but I have a lot of relationship building themes. So connectedness being one of those. Connectedness to me is twofold. It's partially about connection to bigger purpose. So I only can work, I have high belief, number 7 too. I only can work in organizations or with people that I believe in, that I'm aligned with. And so I think the woo communication, I want to kind of suss out, are we aligned? Can we work together? Are we going to be on the same page? That kind of connection to the meaning and purpose of what we're doing, it really matters to me. So I'll use communication to kind of see, like, I'll always do discovery calls before I agree to work with a client. I'll always do a meeting before I take on an engagement for training because I need to understand, like, can we be aligned? Also, I think for me, connectedness is a lot about the web of relationships. So I'm a big user of LinkedIn, and the way that I am connected to people and stay connected to people, it's like Relator on steroids. Like anyone I ever met, I want to stay connected to. And so my connectedness means that I love to be involved in my local community. I love to stay involved with the strengths community. I love to attend events that are connected to community. And I have like 11,000 connections in LinkedIn because I don't want to lose track of anyone that I once met and loved meeting. So that's what that looks like for me.
When you do that, I am curious because I also have this large volume of folks that I connect with. How do you handle it when you don't remember them and they remember you? Are you one that just says, "Oh, could you remind me your name again?" Like, how do you do that? What do you do when you're like, "I know I met you, and I know your name one time, but I don't know it now."
Remind me is a great thing. Remind me where we first met, or remind me the context. I think people are pretty gracious because those of us, in LinkedIn, we're posting a lot, whereas someone else might not have posted for 7 years. But I just recently reconnected with someone who was a student in one of my MBA classes a decade ago. And I remembered the name, I remembered the person, but I didn't remember the situation. But honestly, talking to her for 30 seconds, I'm back, and I remembered, oh, and weren't you facing this? And didn't you transition from this? But because I don't know if you relate to this, Chris, but because I'm so tuned into stories, as soon as someone starts talking, I remember the whole situation of, oh, and wasn't your brother sick? And didn't you travel for that? And you were facing this really hard decision. And it might have been 15 years ago, but I'll remember the story of the person once we get going. Maybe not from seeing the face, but I'll tune back into the story. What about for you?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. The story, really, my understanding of the world is through stories, and my understanding of people is through stories. So that's really interesting that you'd say that. I hadn't thought of that as being particularly part of the strength, but it is absolutely the case. It's the same thing if I am working with someone and haven't worked with them for a while. But as we begin to revisit who we are and what we've done, that all comes back to me. And I, like you, people often say, "Can't believe you remember those things," and that is exactly how I relate to people, is through the stories that I've heard about them.
Do either of you find, as someone is developing the communication strength, that it takes a little bit of effort for them, maybe as it's progressing, maturing, to tune in to who they're talking to, whether it's individual or group, to track when that person is still with them or not with them? And I've coached many people with this strength. I've raised people with this strength, and it is interesting to me to watch at times where communication can be so in its story, it actually isn't any longer aware of where the listener went, because the listener may have had detached at some point in the story. And although this gift, this strength is so powerful at calling you in, it has to almost put some effort into making sure I stay tuned in. I'm curious how you both have grown that in yourselves or even helped others develop that sensitivity.
I think that's a really insightful comment, and I think maturing this strength, I think that's a key part of learning to do that, because we can get so invested in the story, and we understand stories, and so we know it needs to have a punchy beginning, and then you need to get the context and understand what the issue is, and then you've got to land it, right? A story's got to be landed. So there's this sense, we have this innate sense of what that story arc looks like. That doesn't necessarily mean that other people who are listening to us are engaged. And I certainly have had experiences where I suddenly realize that I've gone on long enough about whatever it is that I'm talking about. And for me, one of the key ways that I had to do that was was becoming a coach, because to learn that it's not about you and it's not about your stories, it's about drawing stories out of other people, um, it was a hard lesson for me. I was a trainer for many years before I was a coach. And training was right in my lane, right? I was the expert. I was subject matter expert. I could give my examples, and learning to coach. My mom, who's a psychologist, I got off the first coaching call I really felt was successful in my career. And I said to her, I can't believe that feels so good to other people. I didn't do anything. Like, so it is that sense of it's not about my stories. It's about drawing your stories out. And how can I do that? Um, but that's learned. That was certainly learned for me. And then helping other people understand that as well, Brandon. I agree with you. But for me, it was very personal.
Coaches and service-based business builders want to 10x your impact and income? Join the Strengthspreneur Mastermind, led by Brent O'Bandon, MCC, author of the Strengthspreneur 10X Workbook, and the world's first Gallup-certified strengths coach. This powerhouse group gives you personalized coaching, peer support, and proven tools to launch and scale your unique strengths. We meet 2 times a month. Come sharpen your strategy, boost confidence, and grow smarter, not harder. Visit podcast.34strong.com to thrive as a strengthspreneur. Again, visit podcast.34strong.com. Join Brent O'Bannon and thrive as a strengthspreneur.
I had a similar story. I was a university advisor and instructor, which is all about telling people things that you know. And so as I got more into career development and was becoming a career coach over the last 15 years, one of my colleagues suggested doing coaching training. He said, "You are amazing at explaining things. You could probably be better at asking questions." And that was just true. And it was humbling to hear that. But it was so important to know. And I am so grateful for that. Now, my kids especially will tell me, "You ask way too many questions," but I do think my clients appreciate it. So becoming a trained, ICF certified coach, it was a process of learning to ask good questions. But that's a really fun communication challenge when you have to listen well enough to ask the best question. And maybe for me, that goes to my maximizer, like, who is this person? I have individualization number 8. Who is this person? What do they need? And how do I phrase this the best possible way to get a really useful response?
Absolutely. Understanding that we can be in service of the communication strength through listening, not just through speaking. I think that's an incredibly important insight, particularly for those of us who choose to be coaches.
Yeah, and you went right to where I was going to go, listening. So communication does, as we read about this particular strength, how it shows up, it seems to focus more on the expressive nature, the outgoing nature, the strength's ability to capture the story, bring attention and focus. It doesn't put a lot of emphasis on listening. And I've always thought that was really interesting, because listening is the essence of communication. If we do not listen, one does not feel that we're providing them our attention. And I think you both caught it well, that if that skill, if that's not also developed with this particular strength, that it can tilt in the wrong direction and actually not create as many opportunities or impact as it could if it really focuses in on that listening aspect. Curious how you both have either seen that, developed that, grown it in yourselves when it comes to just taking that time to develop the skill of listening with communication as a strength.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed tuning into as a strengths-based coach is understanding the strengths of the person that I'm talking to. So that's been just a really amazing focus to my work the last few years. And so as a career coach, I am often in a situation where I'm helping someone navigate a really uncertain situation. And I think the listening or the tuning into who the person is what, to me, helps me maximize the effectiveness of the communication. So, for example, if I know that I am working with someone who has achiever, responsibility, discipline, consistency, they need a checklist, they need a process, they need to know, what do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do third? If I am talking to someone who has high ideation, adaptability, giving them a checklist is not going to help them at all. I need to go with the flow with them and say, what are you thinking? What are you thinking next? How does that connect to this? I can tune my questions and my advice to meet the needs of that person if I can tune into who that person is. So for me, I think it's a matter of obviously leveraging those coaching skills that we learned in training. That's why we go to training, but also tuning into individualization, tuning into my relator, tuning into that connectedness.
Yeah. It's interesting, Jennifer. I didn't know how much we had in common. My background is in career development as well, and career coaching has been one of the things that I have really focused on as well. Um, and I also have Maximizer in my top 5. So I completely agree with the comment that Maximizer really does come into play here in terms of the best possible experience absolutely requires that we learn something. I also discovered when I discovered strengths, which happened fairly late in my career, that it is absolutely true for me that every single strengths interaction I have with someone, when I get a new set of strengths, it's like opening a Christmas present every time. I mean, I have that kind of emotional attachment to understanding people's strengths and then to really hearing about from them how they've played out both in a great way and maybe in some ways that have been challenging for them. And only then, to your point, Jennifer, can I begin to leverage the communication skills that I have, the input ideas that I have. So, Brandon, I think you put it really well, which is how infrequently in communication we talk about listening. It's 50% or more of this strength. It has to be. Otherwise, some of those misperceptions about communication, which is we are self-involved, we're manipulative, those words that come up about these influencing strengths. And with my first strength is also an influencing strength. So with activator communication, then it's even more likely. And then one of the things I loved so much about the Activator podcast was that speak before you think, which is, I mean, if you think about the double whammy of activator and communication, that was a painful lesson for me early on. So learning that it is only going to be a successful communication if I listen first and learn something about the other person or people.
Having several of my kids with high communication, I've learned as they're coming up through the immature version of this strength and the clamoring to be heard, the need to be heard, the need to listen to me, and their the currency of attention. I found that high communicators they trade in that if I have your attention, then I have value from you because you've given me what. And I would say as a 50-year-old with high communication, I am aware when I have your attention, and I'm very aware when I don't. I'm very sensitive to knowing that. And it's one of the ways in my own journey with this strength that I've learned to develop it from the standpoint of how do I listen in a way, respect you in a way, appreciate you, connect with you in a way that earns me your attention. It's not just given. It's not just because I showed up and told a great story. I am owed it. It's developed. Because if the number one currency in the world right now that is paid the highest premium is all of our attention. I mean, if we think about the investment made to hold our eyes on whatever it is, whomever it is wants to hold our eyes to, so we do something with that knowledge. This strength seems to have just an innate ability to know how to go find that, to know how to get that attention. And it's powerful in that respect. It's one of those strengths that, because it's influencing and because it is really brave, really outgoing, really courageous, it doesn't seem to suffer the same levels of concern with embarrassment or standing out. I mean, Jennifer, when you said asking a stranger, what do you think of these outfits? And if they said, they look horrible on you, you're like, thank you. I'll go pick a different one. Where others are, most of the population would say, why would you ask that question and face that rejection? And a communicator is going, well, because I wanted to know. And I don't suffer that same insecurity. I don't have that piece to them. And so it's what really makes this a powerful, powerful strength in what it can do. And almost it causes people to pause because they don't know what to do with it.
So I love the word bravery. And I think it's interesting for us because it's who we are. I mean, it's a talent, right? It's something that uh, it's it's like many strengths where someone says, that's so incredible. And you think, it's just what happens. It's who I am. So that sense of being able to interact with people. And part of it, I think, for me is for for people for whom communication, it feels less natural or feels like more of an effort. It's there is a lot of meaning in any one kind of interaction that you have with someone. Wow, that sense of embarrassment, or I have to get what I need out of this. And for us, it's you use the word currency, Brandon. It's our currency. It's a flow. So if something comes back that doesn't make sense to us, then let's keep talking about it. Let's continue the process. So communication is processing, right? It's not an end result. There's no perfect speech. There's, neither of us came in here with a set of notes that we're going to read from, because this is a process. It's organic. And I'll speak for myself. That's how I think about it. Let's get where we go. And right, that's part of the fun.
It's interesting to think about communication in the Clifton Strengths word as like the natural talent, and then the outcome of communicating effectively. And I think that is actually two different things. So the communication talent says, I'm going to engage with the world through words, whether it's writing, speaking. If you text me, I'm going to text you back quickly. I'm compelled to communicate. That is how I engage with the word. If you ask me a question, I'm going to answer. I don't need time to think. However, making that effective, I actually think the listening part isn't part of that communication talent. I think you have to lean to something else that you have. So, Chris, as you're talking, I'm thinking, gosh, you're probably leaning into that input. Like I need to know, or maybe someone who has context, like leans into context. I think for me, I'll lean into individualization or relator and say, or maximizer to be effective here. And it's funny, you said, you don't have notes that you're referring to. I don't have notes I'm referring to, but I journaled about what I was going to say, and I'm not going to refer to it at all. It's here. It's my security in case I need it. I will never need it. But I needed to kind of write out my thoughts so that I would be more effective at saying them. Now, I didn't have to do that. I can just communicate on the fly. But when you say, Brandon, how do you develop your communication? I've learned that if I don't take time to strategize a little bit, I have strategic number 9. I need to lean into that and say, what are the most important things to say? If I don't do that, I'm not going to be as effective, even though I can talk on the fly.
Do you ever feel lonely as a coach or solopreneur? What if you had a place where you could surround yourself with like-minded coaches who truly get you, where learning, sharing, and growing together is the norm? Connect, Learn, and Share, started by Charlotte Blair, is a vibrant community of Clifton Strengths coaches from around the world. Hosted on the Circle platform, it's a place where you'll find people, processes, and events to help you grow your business, enhance your coaching and facilitation skills, and thrive in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment. Connect with coaches from diverse backgrounds and experiences. Learn through a calendar of recorded events across time zones, and share your knowledge in a community built on an abundance mindset rooted in strengths. Visit podcast.34strong.com to learn more. Again, podcast.34strong.com to learn more about the Connect, Learn, and Share community.
And if I can just add to that briefly, I do exactly the same thing. I have strategic number 5. So for sure, but one of the things I was an English major in school, this thread goes across our lives. I was in my first play when I was in 3rd grade. I was on the debate team. I mean, words, all through my life. But words means if I don't do the preparation you're talking about, Jennifer, it's not that I don't have enough to say. It's that I'll just do what we talked about earlier, which is that external processing. And if I think it through And then almost inevitably for me, it goes down to bullet points. Here's a couple of quick bullet points. I have those. I also have those. I don't necessarily refer to them, but it helps me be more direct and actually do less communicating, but hopefully more meaningful communication. So
The
very much the
danger
same.
for us is too many words. And I loved English classes, and I was a theater major. So, it does it does show up early and often in our lives. So
Yes.
that is absolutely true. It is about the words.
When you think about this strength, I'm going to possibly challenge our thinking in the strengths world around woo. And since you both have high woo, woo is often considered probably the more extroverted of all of the strengths. And I've actually come to appreciate communication, in my opinion, is the most extroverted of all 34 strengths. I think if communication shows up even by itself, it lends towards extroversion pretty strongly. Would you both agree or not agree with that? What do you think?
The way I understand extroversion, introversion, like through a Myers-Briggs type lens, is it's really about what energizes you. And to that end, I'm absolutely energized by communicating with people. So it's interesting as a coach and a trainer. I mean, my schedule is packed. If anyone looks at my calendar who doesn't have the kind of strengths I have, I mean, I'll literally do 8 coaching appointments in a day. And people are like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? I said, you have to understand, as a person who leads with relationship building and has high communication, my day doesn't drain me. So at the end of 8, maybe even pretty intense, connected, belief-driven, maximizing coaching calls, I am actually not drained. But if you give me a quiet room and projects and data, and I'm so jealous of your high input, I have to sort through a bunch of stuff and do a lot of details, or gosh, if I have to do something like taxes, I am so drained after 4 hours. So like the pandemic, I was exhausted every single day because I was alone. And so that actually is a really important thing. I think it is the extroversion is we get energy from it, which means it's not draining. So I hear you say that it's brave to like pick up the phone and call a stranger, but it's just not hard for me. That's not draining. I know that it's draining to other people. It's just not draining to me.
I absolutely agree. I had, as I was taking notes and thinking about this, I literally wrote, a great conversation brings the most energy to my life of anything that happens. Brandon, the first conversation you and I ever had on the phone, I got off the phone and my husband said, I have never heard you speak so fast, and you usually talk really fast. And I said, I was talking to another activator communication person. So it's absolutely about energy, and that by that definition of extroversion, it's innate for us that talking to someone and interacting with someone, and like you, that time in the pandemic was a lot of Zoom, a lot of whatever else could happen to continue to have interactions with other people and conversations with other people. But it's absolutely energizing. I agree with that.
Communication story, right? But there's often a story I will tell people about that exact point is, if you're an introvert, you might have been a little bit glad to have a break in the pandemic, right? And people, have said that to me. And I certainly understand that some people are wired that way. But I tell them to understand an extrovert, like a true extrovert, like us, like communication, woo extrovert. In the pandemic, I said, imagine that as an introvert, you had to go to a party for 8 hours a day. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'd be so tired. It's okay. Now imagine that when you get home, the party is still going on. And then imagine that the next day there's another party, and that night there's another party. Now imagine that it goes on for a freaking year. How do you feel? And I said, that is the experience of an extrovert who has to be alone, who can't communicate as often, who can't be with people. I said, if you understand that from we kind of understand that introverts need space and would be drained by a crowd of people. But I don't know if everyone understands that us extroverts like are drained by aloneness and isolation and quiet. Now, I have ideation. I can brainstorm by myself for a little while, but I pretty soon need to talk to somebody about it. So I had to learn to find that through Zoom. And, I work at home. I used to work on a college campus, but I do have, 8 Zoom calls in a day. Thank God. I would do better doing that than being at home alone, not talking to people.
Absolutely. I have a similar story with a partner who, when I was going to conferences with my business and we were running a booth, and then there would be events afterwards. And we used to say the difference was my partner was an introvert. She was great in the booth. She was wonderful and related with people beautifully. But when our necessary time was over, she needed to go and take a long bath. And I was absolutely ready to go to that next networking event. So it's important to us, and it's the opposite of draining. It's energizing. I agree.
I'm going to say we've made the decision. Henceforth, communication, number one extroverted strength on the evidence of these three communicators. No, we won't change the rules, but you both bring up great points. My 17-year-old son started his first job, and he was brought onto a crew to clean windows, residential homes, cleaning windows. And he was doing the job and began to understand a little bit of the nuances of the business, that as the window washer, he made 20% of the job's revenue, but the person who did the sales to win the job earned 30% of the revenue from the job. And so in his first 3 months, he did very well with his work, his customers. He was getting tips. His boss said, I've never had someone in this job get so much in tips. What are you doing to get the tips? He said, I just talk to the homeowners and I make, a nice conversation as I work, and they engage with me, and then they inevitably tip me. And so the boss wisely decides, we're going to put you on the sales side for a bit. And what has been fascinating to watch is, one, he's absolutely doing amazing. I mean, just doing amazing work, but it's the energy at the end of his day that I am noting, that he is just coming into the home with just such drive and enthusiasm. That was an amazing day, and I knocked all of these. It's door to door, by the way, so it's very difficult sales.
Yes.
I knocked all these doors, but I got these sales, and I did this, and it's just such a great case of what happens when these strengths are activated and you watch them in motion. Because he did a great job. He washed our windows, did amazing. He's really dutiful, understood the process, did a great job. But oh my goodness, that energy. And that's, I think, with every one of these strengths, it's such the clue, right? What brings you the most energy? What fills your cup? And for us communicators, it's talking to people. It's engaging with them.
Absolutely.
We love it. So
That's what I would just throw in too, is it is an absolute need. So I do realize, even though I've been talking to people for 8 hours a day on coaching calls, I was asking them questions. I'm talking about their lives. At the end of that day, I still want to process what I've experienced today. I still want to talk about what my day was like. And I live with a very introverted partner who understands that about me, but often says, hey, I'm just going to take 10 minutes and then I'll be back and I want to hear about your day. But he needs a minute before he's ready to absorb that, because it's going to be more draining for him than it is for me. So I do think it's important to realize, I'll tell you, Voxer has saved me more days than not, because I have my coaching friends who we can leave each other 10-minute Voxer messages and kind of process what we're doing throughout the day. Thank goodness for that, because I think it meets that need without it having to necessarily be hitting this wonderful human who walks in at the end of a long day and would love to rest. And I'm like, let me tell you 14 things about my day.
Well, and likewise, I have 2 coaching clients right off the bat that I can think of who very specifically have stuck with me, I believe, because they are external processors, and in their work, there just is not a lot of opportunity to do that. So this is a 45-minute space where we can do that together, and they want it. They're looking for a coach who's going to engage with them and interact and just have a conversation. So often, I think that, to your point, Brandon, when we bring that naturally, that energy, then the people who need that really appreciate it and can find a space where they can do that and get that energy in their day. So we can bring that for them as well. I also have an introverted partner, by the way, Jennifer. So, which is really a blessing, because I need that balancing in my life. But
can you imagine 2 of us trying to do that?
Exactly.
Oh, I actually can.
Brandon can, yes, indeed.
What's that like?
Exactly.
Well, we're both extroverted, and she's more so than me. And so it's interesting, in almost every other circumstance, I'm the extrovert. I'm the one that's driving, except in my home, because my wife is so, woo number one, communication number two, with positivity, with activator, just has such energy for people that when we travel, she can go and go and go and then go and go and go. And because it's all that energy. And I have to have times where it's, hey, can we do like a movies and chill time for a little while? Can we just like decompress for a minute so I can reset, and then I can go? But I can tell you both, it's quite a thing having that. Our children almost have no choice. Like they almost, like I almost feel like, how could any of them not be extroverted? Like it would be impossible. And I think we're 7 for 7. They're all pretty much outgoing folks. Okay, well, to our listeners, we've had a great conversation today. Thank you so much for all of you listening and coming along on the trail today as we talked about communication. If today's episode really spoke to you, we're going to ask you to share it with someone in your network that might benefit, and give us some comments when you see these posted on YouTube or LinkedIn or other channels about what you received or what you might want to know more. To both of our guests today, they are experts in this topic, not only this strength, but in Clifton Strengths, and they'd be happy to be resources to you. So with that, Jennifer, could you tell our listeners where to find you, the work that you're doing, where they might be able to engage with you?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is a great place to find me. I'm in LinkedIn under Jennifer Doyle Vansel. I post pretty often about working from your strengths and strengths-based career development, making work meaningful. And my website is communicatingstrengths.com. I am working in the space of one-on-one career coaching, one-on-one strengths-based executive coaching, teaching and training other coaches and advisors to integrate strengths into their work with students or career or employees. And then I do some team training with organizations that want to work from their strengths, and especially if they want to help their employees to create strengths-based career development plans. Really excited about stepping into more of that work this year. I'm working on a book too, so stay tuned. It is a collection of stories of people who have understood their strengths and made career decisions based on their strengths and landed in a better place because of that. So stay tuned on that. Thanks for the opportunity, Brandon.
Absolutely. Chris, could you tell us where they can find you?
Yes, for sure. That book sounds amazing, Jennifer. I'm looking forward to it. Best way to reach me is LinkedIn as well. I'm Chris Bennett. At this point, I am semi-retired. My husband is fully retired and I'm semi-retired, but I love to network, unsurprisingly. So if you have a question, if you would like to understand resources, or if you just want a ideation and thought partner, I have ideation, my top 10 as well, then I would be delighted to connect with you. Again, LinkedIn, Chris Bennett, and my website is workvantage.com.
Awesome. Chris, Jennifer, thank you both for being here. And friends, if you found today's episode something that you want to build upon, don't worry, we have more strengths coming. So we're going in order alphabetically this season, not as they show up. We're recording in order, but they're showing up at least in their proper alphabet. We'll have them all out. So this particular season, communication will probably be airing in June, but stay tuned because we got competition coming behind it. So you'll see more and more of these coming each and every week. Both of you, thank you so much. This has been a rich conversation. I have some great takeaways, and hopefully our listeners did as well. To all of you, thank you again.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, and we'll see you next time on Coach to Coach.
That's a wrap on this episode of Coach to Coach. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're a strengths coach looking to dive deeper, join the Coach Strong community. It's where coaches like you come together to share insights, support one another, and discover partnership opportunities. Be part of the conversations that are elevating our industry. Email community@34strong.com to join today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Coach to Coach. Stay strong.